What is your choice?
なんですかね。お肉ですかね。やっぱお肉大好きなので。はい。
I love meat.
Hell yeah.
A lot of
Hell
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or you got the meat sweats just thinking about it. Or you got the meat sweats just thinking about it.
3, 2, 1, go.
Episode 235, UFC blank, UFC untitled. We can't even figure out the nomenclature for a card this awful, but nonetheless, we'll break it down. We have to. We don't miss cards since 2020 DIY locks. But last week, Meat Boy, we kind of went off. We low-key crushed it. It was UFC 321, episode 234. The Meatlock was Azamit Murlakanov. First round KO. We kind of said he would do that over Rakic, despite the fact that he's 5'10", throwing those stiff meters down the middle, and Rakic was 6'6", Giga Chad, but ultimately he got slept, just like we said. What'd you make of Azamit Murlakanov, and could he challenge for a title perhaps in 26?
Azami, I mean, he's got absolute bombs for hands, and yeah, I could definitely see it. I worry about his size, but then Rakic ran. I mean, he ran right through that guy. So Rakic's not the best fighter in the division. He is a big guy, but he's not the best. I would be very curious to see how the best big guy would do versus Azamit. So I don't know. He looks pretty dang promising though to be easily a top 5 and be there for a while, but only time will tell.
Yeah, I buy that for sure. I'd like to see him against the next level. I think Jamal Hill would be a fascinating test and a make it or break it fight for Sweet Dreams. Perhaps he's ends up sleeping though for sure. And there were some other good ones on the fight card. Rabeski, your boy, got smoked by Ludovic Klein. Iron Turtle made it kind of interesting fight against Ikram Lokram, but we were all over that one. Your boy went 5-1. You went 4-2. I do want to talk a little bit about the meat event though, just to kind of zip forward. Cyril Gahn was looking pretty good. We both picked Tom Aspinall. We both expected him to go out there and likely finish Cyril Gahn. But what'd you make of what we got to see of that contest? Cyril Gahn obviously was winning the fight. Tom Aspinall was unusually bloodied up. And then obviously the double eye poke ended things via no contest right around the end of the first round. So what'd you make of that fight? And if and when we see it again, do you think the odds narrow? And are you still as bullish on Tom Aspinall going into the rematch, given what we saw from Cyril Gahn?
Yeah, man, this is a very tough one because it looked like that Cyril kind of had his number. He stuffed that one takedown that Tom threw, which it just seemed like Tom had a sloppy panic takedown. Like he was already gushing from the nose, the mouth, and it's like, I don't know. I would like to see Tom try to go for a takedown when he's fresh, when he's not as discouraged, because it seemed like he was a little discouraged and he did a half attempt of a takedown, then a full one. But it's one of those things where it's like this could be Cyril's gonna maul him. He has his number, and second round we're gonna see exactly what we saw first round, that first 5 minutes or whatever. Or it's gonna be like Muhammad Usman versus Leon Scott, where Leon Scott was piecing him up, easy light work, and then the rematch, then the finger poke, and then the rematch happened, and Muhammad, remember the name, he absolutely ragdolled Leon Scott. So I don't know. It's very hard to say. Maybe Tom Aspinall now has his number, now understanding how he feels and all that, and he knows what to train for. So it could go either way. I'm very excited. I hope they run it back. I hope Tom recovers and his eye's good, because I could see this turning into where Tom's eye's not good and he might never fight again.
Yeah, great points. I like the reference to Bilal Muhammad, aka Snoozebro. And you mentioned the eyes, right? Earlier today, Tom Aspinall was saying he's seeing gray, 50% vision. Things are not looking great. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, Tom Aspinall has a quick and just a recovery in general, because you'd hate to see him have a Bisping-like conclusion, especially when there's so much life left in his story. So an interesting end. Hopefully, the rematch is soon. Thinking about Tom Aspinall, but you ready to swap us through into this UFC no-name card? I mean, this is gonna be a tough one to provide a meet down for, but should we grill it over?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, reluctantly swap us through. Then you see the Meatlock, you see the text. This one should be an easy lock. It's Isaac Dulgarian, aka Darius, the Midwest Choppa, taking on Yadier Del Valle, the Cuban Problem, who is 9-0. He's making his second appearance in the octagon. He did pick up a nice finish over Connor Matthews, but that was against Connor Matthews, who is winless in the promotion and has never been competitive. And his work pre-UFC was against a lot of no-name guys, right? He took out Miguel Lugo, beat Alonso Sanchez, took out Nico Kamasangyang. I mean, a lot of dudes that he should go through. Whereas Isaac Dulgarian, while having a little less experience, has already fought pretty tough dudes, right? His UFC debut was against Francis Fire Marshall, who is on the ascension currently. And then after that, he got to fight against C-Rod, who we always pick at Meat Boy MMA. We always cash with C-Rod as a dog. It seems like we've been on the C-Rod train before many others, but Dulgarian fought him to a close split decision, and Dulgarian, most thought, should have got the decision himself. Some questionable judging going on in that contest. So Dulgarian this week was saying he's basically undefeated. He's very bullish and thinks that this fight against the Cuban Problem is simply a layup opportunity to rediscover that hype and re-showcase to the audience that Dulgarian believes himself to be a future champ. So what do you make of this Meatlock? How do you think Dulgarian gets this one done over Del Valle, and is it early or often?
Yeah, Isaac Bulgarian is 100% going to ragdoll this Meatlock. This is going to be easy, light work. This dude is an absolute fireball, is what I could say. Comes out guns blazing, super intense, insane pace. I just don't know how his opponent's going to last more than the first round. I think this will end, TKO ground and pound or a submission early and often. This guy is no joke. Stay tuned for this easy, light work.
Yeah, he's no joke. He pushes an insane pace, insane pressure, almost Marab-like attacks where he's relentless with the takedown and is doing everything he can to get it where it is advantageous on the ground. And the Cuban Problem, while yes, he's a taller dude, he's pretty well-rounded, we simply don't think he'll have the defensive wrestling required in order to stop the Midwest Choppa. And this is one that the odds aren't great. Obviously, we'll be keeping it simple, throwing on an easy 245 to net 100, but over at Tapology, Meepo, I want to get your take on this. They're pretty bullish on the dog Del Valle. So, what do you make of 57% of the Tapology Timmies fading the Meatlock, picking against Isaac Bulgarian? And what's going on in Tapology?
Yeah, I just don't think they realize on how good the Bulgarian man is. I mean, this dude is basically Blake the Builder, but legit. So I don't know what they're on. Maybe they're Builder fans and they're sad he's gone, or they just don't realize on how sick Isaac is. I think after this fight, we're gonna see Isaac start just tearing through everybody.
Yeah, it's a great point. He really is real Blake the Builder, and we've seen post UFC Blake the Builder's numbers absolutely explode on the socials. So perhaps you have something to the effect of the Builder army coming to pick on Tapology. I think your head is in the right place, Meat Boy. Ultimately, though, are we going by finishing this Meatlock, or is there any chance Yadier can survive 15?
I would be very surprised if he survives 15. I mean, he could go decision and easily win this. Um, But I don't know. I just think Isaac is not going to go for the decision. He's going to go for that beatdown first round finish. 100%.
Yeah, I'm with that. Let's roll Darius via finish in this one. We're taking Isaac Dulgarian, the Midwest Choppa, but let us know if you're part of the Tapology Timmies who are rolling with the Cuban Problem. We disagree, however. But swap us through, Meat Boy. It's the second most interesting fight on this card, which essentially says everything. It's Norma Dumont taking on Ketlin Vieira, and this is basically like a, if not a number one contenders fight, it's a fight to get one of these women maybe one fight away from a title shot, if there is even a title opportunity in this division at this point. But it's still the third fight from the bottom on a UFC Apex card that features zero talent. So it kind of, for me, I guess, is an indicator of how the UFC views this division, and perhaps it's a premonition of whether this division is even going to be in existence anymore, given how low these women are on the card. But Norma Dumont is 8-2 in the UFC. She is on a nice 5-fight win streak. She's taken out every woman she fights by unanimous decision. I mean, when Norma Dumont fights, it's likely going the distance, and it's likely Norma winning 2-1. But she's taking on Ketlin Vieira, who is 15-4, has all the experience in the world. She's 6-4 in her last 10, and she has, however, been alternating wins and losses since 2022. So while Norma's on this fat, beautiful win streak, Ketlin's been kind of going up and down. But this is the legendary Ketlin Vieira we're talking about. I mean, this woman has the highest takedown defense in UFC women's bantamweight history, and this woman is tied for the most split decision wins ever with Rocky Pennington. So, what do you make of this historic matchup, Norma Dumont versus Ketlin Vieira, and is it justifiably buried on the prelims, or should this basically be the co-main event?
This honestly should be a co-main event. I mean, both these girls have fought pretty high level on bigger cards for sure, and now they're on this mysterious. I don't even know what you'd call this card. Let's just call it, I guess, a UFC card. Nothing too special. Nothing. I don't even know. It's pretty bad, but it's very fascinating to see them so low on the totem pole. A little disrespectful, but I'm gonna take Ketlin Vieira in this one. I think Ketla, I like those odds. I mean, she's fought best of the best. I mean, Norma has been looking really good. She probably does win this, but I like that. I think Ketlin has a punch chance and can survive. And she's a bigger girl, so she should be able to hold her own. Question mark. We'll see, but I do like those odds, so I'm gonna take Ketlin on this upset.
Yeah, and to the point of the size of Ketlin Vieira, obviously she's a monster, right? She often goes in there and out physicals her opponent for sure. And when you look at Norma Dumont, again, as mentioned, she's 8-2, and who are her two losses? She lost a close split decision to Macy Chasson, aka another longer, taller woman in the division, and then she lost her debut, got absolutely smoked by Megan Anderson, who's like 6'5", and I think is like the tallest UFC women's fighter ever. So perhaps you're onto something where the size could give Norma Dumont some challenges. If you're taking Ketlin, do you really think that it will be by YOLO finish, or do you see a world where perhaps Ketlin Vieira can win a decision against Norma Dumont as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Catlin, if she wins by finish, that'd be crazy. But yeah, I think she's got to win this by decision. Maybe a first round KO, but I don't know. This will be a tough fight. But yeah, she is a bigger girl, so she could get this done, like you were saying with the other two, where they're just a bigger, taller, all that. So this will be a good matchup. I think the odds should be closer in my opinion, but I get why Norma's been looking pretty dang strong. But yeah, Ketlin's no joke, so I'm gonna take her.
Ketlin's no joke indeed. Fifth most total control time in UFC women's bantamweight history. I mean, the accolades speak for themselves. But in this one, me boy, I'm going to fade you just slightly. I think all three rounds in this fight are uber competitive, difficult to score. Norma Dumont ultimately wins by split decision. Neither woman gets an interview, and perhaps this is the last fight we see in this women's division. But I'll take Norma ever so slightly by split. You're officially going Ketlin by decision?
Yeah, Ketlin via decision.
Let us know in the comments who you're taking, and swap us through me, but we're taking Temba Garimbo in this one against Jeremiah Wells, who is 12-4-1. This dude was 4-0 in the UFC, looked like a real contender, then ran into Carlston Harris, spoiled one of our Meatlocks, and hasn't won since. This is a guy who last picked up a victory in April of 23 when he eked out a split decision over Semi the Jedi. And he's taking on Temba Garimbo, who himself was on a 4-0 fight win streak, and then ran into Vicente Luque, right? The odds makers were finally backing Temba Garimbo. He was like a 2-1 favorite, had all the hype, and got absolutely smoked in 52 seconds via that Anaconda choke submission by Luque. So Temba got knocked down a peg. Jeremiah Wells got knocked down 2 pegs. Both these dudes had some hype a little while ago. It's basically a pick 'em. Which guy do you think rediscovers the hype, and what happens after this fight? Do either of these guys have a future in this division?
I don't even know because Jeremiah Wells, was a fan, not a fan, but kind of still am a fan. But he just, whenever the time comes where he needs to clutch through, he always fumbles the bag. The dude is an absolute specimen. He should be, still undefeated in the UFC, but he is not. And I think this is going to be his bounce back fight. He is a little older, but I don't know. The dude's a genetic freak, so I gotta take him at plus 100. I think he's a better athlete, better wrestler than Themba. If Themba keeps it on the feet, he's probably gonna piece up Wells, but I think Wells' grappling is just so good, and his wrestling, his explosiveness. I don't see how Themba's gonna stop his grappling. That's what I just don't see.
Yeah, it's a good point for sure. I think that Temba is obviously the much bigger dude, right? He's 6'1", 77-inch reach. Jeremiah Wells coming in at barely 5'9", 74-inch reach. So perhaps the reach and the length can help Mamba stay on his feet against Jeremiah Wells in this one, because I agree with you. I think that the longer this fight is on the feet, Temba likely has the advantage. But we saw Luque secure that choke relatively easy and relatively early. So I think you make a good point that the wrestling is definitely going to test Garimba early. It's just has he made the requisite adjustments since that last fight against Vicente Luque, which at this point was almost a year ago. So we'll see what he's been doing in between. If you are taking Jeremiah Wells, and I like that you touched on the fact that it's a complicated relationship that we have with Jeremiah Wells over here at Meat Boy MMA, right? Because this is a Renzo Gracie Philly guy training with all your boys, and we obviously wanted to root for Jeremiah Wells. We did for a long time, but like you said, he sort of fell off the horse as soon as we started to try and saddle it. So what do you make of this return fight? And you mentioned the age of Jeremiah Wells. Do you worry at all that at pushing 40, the story basically just, the wells could be empty, so to speak?
The wells could be empty, but I think there's a little bit left of the fumes in the tank to get by on this fight. At least I'm hoping. I'm hoping so because I want to see Team Body Bag get another dub. I really hope Jeremiah Wells gets this done. Plus 100. I can't not hit that.
Yeah, I like it, Meat Boy. I'm sold. You've convinced me. Wells gets this one done. I like it at plus 120. Let's hope that Temba can't stuff these takedowns and the Temba Garimbo story for as long as it was enjoyable and the wins he was getting were impressive. But look at who he's against, right? Nico Price, Pete Rodriguez, Takashi Sato, pretty low-level UFC fighters. So let's go Jeremiah Wells for the YOLO. I like Jeremiah Wells by decision. You got decision as well?
Yeah, decision for sure.
Swap us through then. It's the co-meat. It's heavy meat slappers. It's Ante Delija taking on Waldo Cortez, aka Salsa Boy, who is 14-2, 7-2 in the UFC, and was riding a 5-fight win streak before running into Sergey Pavlovich and losing a unanimous decision just 3 months ago. And now he's taking on Ante Delija, who was basically the PFL GOAT. This guy was winning PFL championship after PFL championship, signs with the UFC, takes his talents over here, and absolutely spoiled a Meatlock, I believe, when he slept Martin Tibura, our boy, our Polish brother, and earned performance of the night for his debut. So Ante Delija opened his UFC tenure via a beautiful finish over a guy that we have obviously a lot of respect for in Martin Tibura. Is he going to continue his ascent and perhaps stake his claim as a future heavyweight title challenger, or does Waldo Cortez respond after his most recent win and start a new, or his most recent loss and start a new win streak of his own? Who you taking?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because yeah, I mean, Ante swooped out our boy Martian Tibera, the GOAT. So that was pretty impressive to see him KO him. But Waldo's a weird one. He's really bad, but yet he just keeps winning fights somehow in weird, bizarre ways. He did just lose to Sergey Pavlovich, but somehow beat Spivak, the polar bear. So I don't even know. And he also KO'd Ryan Spann. Like that doesn't even like make sense. I think Waldo gets knocked out first round versus this guy, or somehow he wins decision. I'm gonna pick anti KO second round.
Anti-KO second round. What makes you bullish that he'll be the first one that can finish Salsa Boy? Because Salsa Boy, again, we know is 14-2, 7-2 in the UFC, and only has the 2 losses. But again, one was to Sergey Pavlovich, decision. The other was to Marcos Rogerio de Ligma, also decision. And we know Waldo Cortez is a guy who is pretty light on his feet, doesn't get hit a lot. He's pretty defensively sound with that boxing background. What is it about Ante Delija's game that makes you bullish on him being the first one to go out there and not only beat Waldo but finish him?
Just the way he put out Tibera, like he knocked him out clean, cold, pretty brutally. And the last person to do that was the GOAT, Tommy Aspinall. So if nobody else can do it in the UFC, for the last 5+ years, but Tom, and then this guy comes and does it. I mean, this guy's got some crazy power, so I think he could take him out and give him his first KO loss. And so I think Waldo is going to get slept. He's so due to get slept. He's so bad. I don't know how he hasn't been slept, but this is going to be the one where he does get slept.
Yeah, I like where your head's at, and we might even be seeing closer to plus 300 and upwards for Ante Delija. And this is a dude who has plenty of first round finishes. A majority of his or half of his wins are by KO, and he's slept some pretty talented dudes, right? Renan Ferreira, aka the Thumb, and absolutely smoked Jorgen De Castro, who is another guy who doesn't get finished too often. So perhaps you could be onto something with the anti-Delija finish like he just did against Tibura. Looking over at Tapology, though, 70% is rolling with anti-Delija, only 30% is going with Waldo, and they're with you, me boy. They think that the Brown KO will cash. So if you're taking Delija by KO, it's second round, you said?
Yeah, I think it's going to be second round for sure.
I'll roll with you. I like the idea. I'll go anti-Delija as well in this one, but it could be like you said, Waldo eking out a victory like he always does. It seems like Waldo Cortez is in these, I don't want to call them uneventful fights, but sometimes the rounds seem to go on forever, and ultimately Waldo gets his hand raised at the end, but the fans didn't. So in this one, I'll roll with you. I like anti-Delija as well. Swap us through them, me boy. It's the meat event. It's definitely the most interesting fight. Probably, I don't want to call it the only interesting fight, but the most anticipated, at least for us. Steve Garcia continuing his ascent, taking on David Onama. And both these dudes are coming off fat win streaks. Onama has won 4 in a row. Garcia has won 6 in a row. And the dude is 7-2 in the UFC. And within those 6 recent wins, half of them have earned him Performance of the Night bonuses. I believe we meatlocked a Steve Garcia or 2 in there because we've been all aboard this Steve Garcia train. But Onama himself is also picking up beautiful wins and got a Performance of the Night finish over Gabriel Santos himself. So what do you make of this meat event? Is this the opportunity for Steve Garcia to get a showcase W in a meat event slot and perhaps welcome himself to a brand new audience? Or is David Onama just the right opponent to stop the Steve Garcia train in its tracks?
I think David Onama is not the right guy to stop Steve Garcia. I think Steve Garcia is going to steamroll through this dude. But yeah, Steve Garcia is sneaky nice. He doesn't look like he would be a UFC fighter, but he is one of the sickest and nastiest guys in the division. So I'm super pumped to see him get this one done. But this will be a good fight. It should be a close fight, but yeah, I think he gets this done KO. To be honest, second round.
KO for Steve Garcia wouldn't be crazy, right? The dude has 18 wins, 14 of them coming by knockout, and he only has his only recent decision was that most recent fight against Calvin Kattar, right? Who's basically impossible to put out by strikes and accumulated a lot of damage via Steve Garcia. So Garcia is a proven finisher. The dude goes out there and smokes everyone. Onama, meanwhile, has never been finished, right? This is another dude with 2 losses, both by decision. So if Steve Garcia is the first one to do it, do you think that it could be early? And my second question for you is, if somehow Steve doesn't get an early finish and this fight extends into the later rounds, who do you anticipate having the advantage? And it's difficult, obviously, to make a prediction since neither of these guys have gone the distance before. But if you had to predict, if you had to speculate, if this fight is in the 4th round, who looks sharper, Steve Garcia or David Onama?
It's a good question, but I gotta go Steve Garcia. I think he wins this KO decision, even a weird submission, which he's never even gotten one before. But it would just be pretty funny to see. I don't know. I'm just not sold on the Onama hype train. He lost to Nate Landwehr. Little sus of a loss, especially in recent times. As Nate the Train, our boy, he's slowly been going downhill, losing to Choi, fake Morgan. Like, come on. I don't know what's going on with him, but he needs to get back on the W column. Steve Garcia's been on an absolute tear, and no shame in any of the losses he's had, except for Luis Pena. But we don't talk about that one. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, the Violent Bob Ross loss is a tough one for sure, but the fight right before it, he's taking out Chepe Mariscal pre-UFC, and Chepe doesn't lose UFC fights either. So Steve Garcia, beautiful wins. That Chase Hooper win obviously is aging quite nicely. Took out Sting. Not much to celebrate there. But either way, Steve Garcia has done some impressive stuff for sure. But Tapology is bullish on Steve Garcia. They think Mean Machine gets this one done likely by KO. 18% rolling with the silent assassin, David Onama. I'm officially going to go Steve Garcia. Let's hope that this fight, I want to see this fight in the later rounds. I mean, I've been really impressed with Steve Garcia across 15 minutes. I want to see if he can go 25 because I've never seen a gas tank issue from the Mean Machine, and I want to see if that remains true even in championship rounds, because if it does, and this is a guy who can fight his style of fight for 25 minutes, then I really see him as a tough problem for any guy in this division, and David Onama will be a great test in this first 5-round fight of his. So I'll go Steve Garcia. I'm going 4th round finish. You're taking Garcia, but an earlier finish. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a earlier finish. But it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes it. Any of the rounds really. But yeah, I'm thinking first or second round.
Yeah, fair play. Let us know in the comments if you're rolling with the Mean Machine or if you are taking the Silent Assassin. But nonetheless, Meat Boy, we got through it. We broke down 5. Probably the most difficult card to find a favorite 5 for. But nonetheless, we got it done. Dulgarians and Meatlock. Any last thoughts on UFC blank?
No, blank is a fun card. I guess, and hopefully there's a better one next breakdown.